Mr. Wu was standing against the railing at the top of the stairs. He's been standing there for the last 3 nights when I get home from work. I live in one of those 5 stories downtown apartment buildings that are always filled with a variety of characters. The woman with a million cats, who's always wearing a worn-out robe, the man or woman who are constantly fighting and then making up loudly, the mother with the screaming children, and the neighbours you never see. And there was always a Mr. Wu. I've been working late for the past week trying to get a story written and ready for print for the Dark County Gazette about the strange disappearance of a couple of local guys. I finally finished it tonight and was making my way up the stairs to my apartment on the 3rd floor when there he was, just standing there. He was holding on to the old metal banister and looking at me with his small almond-shaped eyes with an almost pleading urgency about him. I really didn't know Mr. Wu very well. I had only seen him a few times just passing, and aside from a nod or quiet hello, he would usually just shuffle on by. This time was different. He almost seemed upset and saddened. I wondered if everything was alright with him. Maybe he was waiting for someone. As I approached, he held out a hand to stop me and opened his mouth to speak. Nothing really came out but a few small garbled noises. "Are you okay, Mr. Wu? Is there something I could do for you?" He looked frustrated and began pointing down the hallway. He seemed fine last night and the night before, like he was just standing there waiting for something. "Do you need some help? Is there someone I can call?" More frantic pointing. I looked down the dimly lit hallway and couldn't see anything abnormal. I looked back to tell him, and I noticed that one of his eyes had turned a strange, milky white colour. Mr. Wu just continued to point down our apartments. Mine was the 3rd door on the left, and his was the 5th on the right. "Is there something bothering you? Did someone break into your apartment?" His hands started flailing in frustration towards the hall, like I wasn't listening to him at all. I grabbed at his arm, but missed it somehow. I could have sworn. It was like my hand passed right through him. He started walking at that point, slowly shuffling his way down the hall in his dirty grey slippers. He kept stopping, turning around, and motioning for me to follow. I sighed, giving in, and I followed him. I dropped my bag and my jacket off in front of my door and continued down to where he was standing, in front of his door. He motioned towards the door. "Were both of his eyes milky white just a minute ago?" I thought to myself. "Are you locked out or something? Do you mean to call the super?" He just motioned towards the door and did a turn with his wrist. I put my hand on the doorknob and looked back at Mr. Wu. He had a different look on his face. This time, it was no longer panic or frustration, but calm and a slight smile. He motioned for me to continue. I turned the knob and slowly opened the door and looked back. Mr. Wu was gone. I was alone there, in the corridor. I reached into his apartment and flicked on the light switch. And there was Mr. Wu, lying on his living room floor. His face was twisted in panic, and his eyes were milky white.